Welcome to September 16, 2021, edition of the Mayor's Emergency Response Roundtable. I'm here with our school superintendent, Dr. Jared Cotton, and former colleague, friend, and school principal, Mr. Keith Hyater, principal at Greenbrier Intermediate School. So for the purposes of those of you that are watching and understanding that we certainly want to respect all the proper precautions for avoiding the transmission of this horrible virus. So we're therefore starting off wearing masks, but we are distanced, are 6 feet apart, so we're going to take it off so that when we speak, we'll be clear for you and for each other. So hope you all understand that. So let's get started. Mr. Hyater, I am really glad you're here. You know, as a former principal, I have to say, you know, you're in the trenches every day dealing with the parents, dealing with the kids, dealing with the teachers. And I will tell you something, as a former principal, while you're in those trenches, you know, it sometimes may seem a little stressful, but it will prepare you to do anything in life, anything you want to do. So after this is over, you will be prepared. You will have been there. You could even be a mayor of a city, I got to tell you. So should you be lacking to and slip to think of such bad vocations. So glad to have you here, and I know you're going to contribute a lot.
Thank you, Mayor West. Thank you. I'm excited to be here today, and I want to thank Dr. Cotton as well for inviting me to be a part of this roundtable discussion.
Great, thank you so much. So let's get started. So we're a little over a week into the 2021 school year. Dr. Cotton, how would you describe the first few days of school?
Well, I would tell you that we've had our challenges, which we'll talk about as we go through today. And Mr. Hyater, I really appreciate him being here because I've been to his school a couple times already, and I've had a chance to see how things are going. But I will tell you, our students are excited, our teachers and staff are excited to have the students back in school. I've gone to several schools. Our students are doing a great job following all the safety protocols that we put in place. But you can get a sense of excitement. You know, we have students who haven't been in schools for several months, some of them as much as 18 months. Back in March 2020, when everything shut down, they hadn't been in school since that time. So some of them are back for the first time. Some went to school a couple days a week, but some of them were totally virtual for that period of time. So you can tell that they're very excited to be back. We do have challenges with transportation. We've been talking about that quite a bit. We've been asking our families to help us with transportation because, you know, we're about 120 bus drivers short, and we're aggressively trying to recruit bus drivers so that we can fill that need. And with lots of our parents now driving and picking up, which we really appreciate, they're helping us out, but that's created another problem. Now that's created a traffic issue for us with drop-off and pickup. A lot of those have improved every day. Some of our school sites, we still have challenges, but I want our families and our community to know that we're aware of those. We're working on them, we're coming up with creative solutions, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to resolve those sooner than later. But like I said, every day gets a little better.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I did have a call from a citizen who had an experience at one of the schools here, and why he called me, I don't know, but he did insisted on talking to me, rather angry. But he and I talked a few minutes, and I said, you know, let's understand what the challenge is. And actually, by the time I had talked to him, he had talked to the school again, and he saw that they were making improvements and was very satisfied and said, you know, you're right. Sometimes we get a little stressed over dropping our kids off or picking them up, but I think people are realizing that you're making the effort and that things are getting better, so I'm glad you mentioned that. So, you know, the first day of school or the first week of school is always kind of an exciting time to both of you. I remember those days, those first weeks, trying to get people into a routine, making sure your master schedule works and all that stuff. But, you know, as you just said, this is a little different. Can you sort of describe that?
I'll start, but Mr. Hyater can speak more directly to that because he's living it there on the ground there at the school. But you know, we do have lots of challenges that we're dealing with. We're very excited to have the students back. This year is even more exciting. Every year is exciting to start off a new school year, but this is even more exciting because so many of our students we haven't seen face to face in so long. And several teachers have told me as I've visited classrooms that they're just so happy the kids are here. They're very excited that the students are back, and this is what they signed up for, to serve our students, and this is their why. This is why they come to work each and every day. So they've been very excited about that. They are following the safety protocols, moving forward. They feel confident that we have lots of strategies in place to keep students and staff safe. Mr. Hyater, do you want to talk a little bit about how things are going on your end?
Yes, Dr. Cotton, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Definitely remembering our why. The kids that are placed in our charge, words can't express how excited we are that the students and the staff are there. It shows in their actions, their expressions, and all that's occurring in the building. As Dr. Cotton stated, there are challenges, but the excitement of having our students there outweigh many of the challenges. We're working through those daily. At this time, transportation is our greatest challenge, as it is for our division and every division. But each day, as Dr. Cotton stated, it's getting a little better. The first day, I think I got home at 6:45. But yesterday, I got home at 5:30. So each day there are improvements. Our bus drivers are more than willing to work with us. We're creating ways to be able to safely get more students on the bus than from the first day when we first started. Our parents are dropping their kids off, and we are very thankful for their efforts and collaboration to work with us along those lines. And even the traffic congestion from the parents, that's getting better, because once we get our systems in place for parents checking out the kids, it's moving faster. So daily things are getting better, but the excitement in the building, if you were to walk through Greenbrier Intermediate, the kids are excited to be there. They're actually now getting engaged in high quality learning experiences. The teachers are excited, and we're working through those challenges together.
I remember my first year at principal at Southeastern Elementary School, where you replaced me, and it was my first assignment as a principal. And first day of school, the buses arrived, the kids were there. We had 2 kindergarten classes, and about an hour after school started, one of the kindergarten classes, the teachers came to me and said, "We're missing a child." And so I panicked, of course. I called the superintendent. He personally came to Southeastern and was searching the grounds behind the building.
Yes.
We had fire department. It was crazy. And it wasn't too long after it happened, we found that the child was in the other kindergarten class. Needless to say, safe and safe.
Let's add that,
but,
safe.
But I mean, that's one experience that occurred in a normal
Yes.
year. So
Yes.
do you have any of those kinds of experiences that you
We
could
have
share?
had this year, again, as you said, students that may not have been in the building for quite some time that are not sure where they're supposed to go. And we work through those and reassure the parents as well. But as far as school starting and kids getting into a routine, I'm very thankful that I have a staff that's just amazing. We are all working together to make sure that our kids' transition is as smooth as possible. And we're communicating with parents. If we find that we don't have procedures in place for a child's dismissal, we try to reach out to parents and be a little proactive and make sure that we can prevent some of those incidences from occurring.
Right. Thank you. So we were talking before, we still are dealing with the pandemic. We're still day to day not knowing what the numbers are going to be and what's the next step. So how has this year started the school different from last year in regard to the pandemic?
Well, one of the challenges that we've had to face is just the sheer number of students who are now on campus. Last year, I would say that probably across the school division, about 40% were virtual all year, about 60% were coming in person. As you know, our K through 5 students came 5 days a week, which we're very proud of, that we made sure our early learners came to school every day, because we know how important that is in the early years. We've talked about that in previous roundtables discussions. So But now we have 97% of our students on campus and about 3% virtual. So the challenges that come with that, just the sheer number of students. And one of the big challenges is we just can't maintain that distancing in our classrooms. You know, we tried for 6 feet, and then of course we had to at least ensure 3 feet with students wearing their masks in the classroom, so we were able to do that. But last year, we could make it work for elementary, we couldn't make it work for middle or high school. So they had to do more of a blended hybrid model where students came a couple days a week and then they worked virtually the rest of the week. Now, they're all in school 5 days a week, and they are not 3 feet apart in all instances. So that's why the masking has been so important, and we've had a lot of debate about masking. I know the school board wanted to make it optional in June when things looked a lot different than what they look like today as far as the numbers and the metrics. And then, of course, we have the public health order that we have to follow with the masking. But there are studies that show that even with not making the 3 feet, the masking does help, you know, protect students and staff from the virus. So, but we're having to deal with less distancing. And so that's why the masking is going to be important as we move forward. We all want our students to not have to wear masks and our staff members to not have to wear masks, but that's not where we are today. So we're navigating through that, and our students are doing a great job working through that. The other thing that we're dealing with is the quarantine rules and having to continue to implement those. And now we also have a lot of students eating lunch. So lunch has been a very big challenge for us. Where we were trying to maintain 6 feet in the cafeteria, and with the numbers we have, we're not able to do that. So our principals have had to they've been very creative with how to handle lunch. Mr. Hyater, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about how you've kind of worked through lunch, trying to protect the students as much as possible.
Yes, sir. We are, as Dr. Cotton said, trying to ensure the safety in all areas of their transitions. And the space now is an area that we have to be very mindful of. Our students have returned and they're all eating in the cafeteria in a traditional manner. But we've also set up additional desks around the cafeteria if there's a student or a parent who would desire that their child have a little more space. We have a limited number, not enough for everyone, but we try to make sure that we have other measures in place to help assist if there are concerns that are brought to our attention.
So going back to, that's a great strategy to try to get them separated a little bit more. But going back to, you still can't predict how each day is going to go in each school. So are you seeing some outbreaks, or more than you would have thought, or less than you would have thought?
Well, the good news for us, if there is good news, is that as a school division, we put a high price on keeping students in school throughout the year. As you know, we've talked about this all through last year. So we do have a lot of experience, not that we know everything about this because it's continuing to change and evolve, but we had sound practices in place all throughout last school year. We are concerned, of course, with the Delta variant and with it being more contagious and with the sheer number of students and the challenges with distancing. But of course, the way that we've addressed that as we continue to implement our layered mitigation strategies that we have in place, the masking, the hand sanitation, the strategies that we had in place last year, which is why it's so important that we maintain those as we move forward. We've also been promoting vaccination clinics for our students who are eligible to participate, and those are free. And what's been interesting there is our students come to get vaccinated and their parents get vaccinated as well. They come with them, and even some of our employees do that as well. But we are finding that as of right now, we don't have outbreaks, but we're finding that our cases are starting to grow, but what we're learning is a lot of these cases are from outside of school, where students and staff are, being infected in other places, not in school. And that's certainly what we work toward. We don't want to have transmission in our schools. We do know it's going to happen, but we try to do everything we can to prevent that. As of right now, we don't have any outbreaks, and I want to remind everybody that the word outbreak sounds really scary when you hear it. It sounds like a lot of people getting the virus at one time. Really, it just takes two or more. If one transmits to one other person, and then that's all it takes to be classified as an outbreak. And when that happens, then of course we denote that on our dashboard, which I'm really proud of. Here in Chesapeake, we've had our dashboard in place, and we've even upgraded it now, where our families can subscribe to the dashboard so they can get daily updates. And we even use a color coding system. We use a green, yellow, and red, so our families can see green being low, low transmission, low cases in our schools. So our families can kind of look at their school and see how things are going. And we have a number of cases for that, a daily number of cases that we post every day. And then we have a 2-week running number that we keep as well. And we also are going to designate if there's an outbreak. And thankfully right now there's no outbreak cases, but we do have the numbers that we post so our families can monitor. And when we move to yellow, that means we're having more cases and potentially 2 or more outbreaks. And red, of course, means that we have several cases and several outbreaks. And when we get to that level, we're going to have to move temporarily online.
Well, that's very impressive. You've given parents the information so they're empowered to make some decisions. I think that's awesome. And you mentioned the vaccinations. I think I read where ages 12 to 17 the lowest group that have been vaccinated, but you are seeing some of because obviously, less need for masks and all that, and the distancing once they're vaccinated. So you are seeing some uptake on that.
We are, and we're getting more and more participation, especially from our athletes. And of course, something else that we're looking at doing this year that's different than what we did last year is we're developing a testing program for our student athletes, especially for our high-risk, high-impact sports like football, basketball, wrestling, where our students are in very close contact. And that's something that we're hoping to start in October. Several people have asked me why it's taken us so long to start. Well, we applied for a grant, and then we were awarded that grant, and then we have to work out the details of the vendor we're going to work with to help us with testing. But we're very close to having that finalized, and we're hopeful that that's going to be up and running in October. And we're going to talk to the board more about that at the next board meeting. But that's something that we have in place that's new. We do have community members who want us to test all students, but we're not at that point yet. But we are making sure everyone's aware of testing sites and availability of testing.
So if you got to the point where all kids could be tested, are there any barriers to that? Should you be able to do that?
Well, the barriers to that is just the amount of time and the funding to do the testing. And there are grant funds, and of course we have received ESSER funds that we're using for lots of different things, HVAC and additional staff members to help us work through the pandemic. But there are lots of challenges involved in testing large groups of students and the instructional time that will be lost during that time. But again, nothing's off the table, but we're not planning on doing general testing right now for students. We are just focusing on athletes. And to be frank, that's where we're having some of the issues through sports, because we're having close contact, and some of that happened before school ever started. And of course, when you have situations like that, and we have strategies in place to minimize quarantines and things like that. But if you have a case on a football team, you could be quarantining a lot of students, and those students go to school and impact a lot of other students. So athletics is the priority right now.
Wow. That's interesting. That's very interesting. So you talked a little bit earlier about the buses and transportation in a great year. Shortage of bus drivers. Like for us, I had an email this morning about the grass clippings not being picked up, and we have the same problem that every organization, every business, every locality, school system throughout this country has, getting people to come to work. What kind of strategies are you looking at for getting bus drivers so you can help with the issues?
Well, we have been providing incentive opportunities for our bus drivers. When they have a CDL, they get a stipend. When they are hired, they also have a stipend, and our board actually increased that recently. I believe to $500 at this point in time, just to entice folks to come to work. We have simplified our application process. We are doing pop-up recruitment fairs all over the city, and we're doing everything we can to encourage folks to apply. We're starting to get many more applications now, which is a good sign, so we're hopeful that we'll start moving forward. But again, that's a process. They have to be trained, and they have to, because we can't just put somebody on a bus immediately. They have to be trained and go through the process, and they have to practice and be assessed to make sure that they can transport our students safely. We do have other staffing shortages that we're dealing with. I know we're hearing a lot about bus drivers right now, cafeteria workers, so Mr. Hyater may be able to speak to that as well, custodial issues. We have some teacher vacancies that we're working on, and we continue our efforts to reach out and recruit our teachers, but we still have a handful that we're still trying to find. We do have some long-term subs who are working in some of our classrooms, but again, it could be far worse in the teacher pool, and it has been, because there's been a teacher shortage for quite a few years, but we just have a handful of teacher positions we're still working on. Probably the area we're hurting the most are bus drivers, custodial, and school nutrition. I don't know if you're facing any of that, Mr.
So how
Hyater.
does that affect your day-to-day operation?
Yes.
Your microphone, Keith.
Yes, we currently have a custodial vacancy and a vacancy in school nutrition services, so we have to reimagine how we best serve our kids. The staff has to be creative in making sure items are prepped ahead of time so that we can serve our kids in a timely manner, and they're getting to class before the tardy bell rings and they're not missing instruction. Our custodial staff members are creative in reassigning how we clean the building and clean rooms. So hopefully, as we're all thinking this fall, maybe we'll begin to see more applicants returning to the workforce. But we're working through it, and we're just finding creative ways to continue to serve the kids.
Let me ask you. Let me go back to you and ask you the next question. You know, Dr. Cotton talked about outbreaks, and on the school level, are you meeting with other principals throughout the city and talking about what if you have an outbreak, and how are you responding to that, or planning to respond to that if you should?
Yes, we have many collaborative discussions with our soup and his staff, as well as in our principal meetings. We all kind of, really think through the process and develop guidance for how we'll handle situations when students are identified to having been exposed. The nurse then has protocol that she must follow. We're then reaching out to parents, health services for the school division. There's a step-by-step process. Then we have to make sure that we follow through with ensuring that the students' instructional requirements are still carried out, that even if they are transitioned to 14-day quarantine, that their instruction does not stop at that time. So we have that in place as well. So it is a step-by-step process.
Let me ask you about that. So a child is quarantined.
Yes.
How do they get instruction? Is there homebound teachers? Are there homebound teachers for that? Or
there are, but that's a different avenue. If a child is identified as having been exposed, we follow the appropriate guidelines for contact tracing. We reach out to our school health services. And then if it's identified that the child must actually have to be in quarantine, we then transition to a continuity of learning for these children. At Greenbrier Intermediate, we're providing access to a live link whereby the student will be able to log in. He or she will be able to hear the instruction for the day. If there are questions, they'll be able to email the teacher. The teacher will be able to respond. So we try to make sure that there's some continuity in their instruction and that they're not missing out on the skills that they should be learning at their respective grade levels.
Thank you for that. That's an interesting change of the time when I was in school, when you didn't have too many options of getting out there to those parents. And, Dr. Cotton, you talked about one of our earlier roundtables about how, on a positive side, this pandemic has upped our game in our ability to use technology for instruction. So this seems to be playing out even this year. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, you're right. We have really ramped up our technology practices. You know, during the pandemic, we improved our internet speed in all of our school buildings. We've purchased hotspots that we can check out with our families. Now, that's an annual cost that you have to pay to have access to the internet, but all of our schools have a handful of hotspots that they can distribute to families, families who don't have internet access at home. All of our students are one-to-one. They all have a device that they can use in school and at home. And so if we have to transition to the virtual, and just like Mr. Hyater said, we have a continuity of learning plan where we're very creative with how we address things. Like in some cases, the teacher may be quarantined and may have to teach virtually from home. And we may have to put a substitute or an adult in that classroom to monitor the students. In some cases, the teacher and the class may be quarantined, and so they'll all be virtual. And in some cases, you'll have some students in the class who are working from home and checking in virtually with the teacher throughout the week. And so we have to prepare for many different scenarios. But I would also put out a plug and a shout out for all of our teachers, because the technology that they have learned over the past 18 months is just incredible. And we have purchased a lot of technology for them, which is exciting, but they've had to learn how to use it all effectively in real time. You know, they didn't have a few months to work through it. They had to learn it as they were teaching, and they've stepped up and they've done an incredible job. And I know Mr. Hyater can speak to that as well. Your teachers have, and by the way, Greenbrier Intermediate has some great technology advanced teachers. They've always such teachers who are pretty innovative.
I agree.
Yeah, but they've had to really ramp it up, haven't they?
Yes, sir. Our teachers have had to learn on the fly, and we're excited about the one-to-one devices. We're also now getting new interactive panels. But as Dr. Cotton said, kudos to all of our teachers in this division and the awesome staff I have at Greenbrier, because they've stepped up, more than willing, even learning extra in how to meet the kids' needs instructionally, making sure that parents actually are able to also assist their children at home with the devices and the technology so that they can support their learning as well. It's been a journey, but it's been a great one.
Thank you. You know, I often ask what are our city, in fact, I spoke to a couple of groups yesterday about what our city's greatest challenges are. I spoke with the mayor of Virginia Beach, and I shared, and we both agreed that obviously public safety is a huge issue for us in the cities. Education would be right up there. And then to many surprises, I talked about connectivity. You just mentioned the hotspots. You know, we have been able to make some progress with getting our ring together so that you won't need those hotspots in the future, and that you'll have better connectivity throughout the city, especially in the rural area. So we look forward to making that easier for you as well, because as you know, our schools are the first place that we want to be able to get connected and connected to the ring. Any thoughts about that?
No, we're excited about any support you can provide, and we want to make sure that all of our families and students have access to the technology they need. It's always been important, but it's been incredibly important during this season, so any support you can provide, and I know my Chief Technology Innovation Officer is serving on that committee, so we're very much involved in that project.
Absolutely. So we're kind of wrapping up. Let me ask you the last couple of questions. Any other things? You talked about the technology connections, parents staying connected to the dashboard, understanding where the outbreaks are from either level, system-wide level or school level. Are there any other things that parents need to know about this particular school year?
I would just say for them to know that we're excited to have their children back in school. This is why we do what we do, and this year is incredibly challenging. I kept telling staff that it's going to get better, it's going to get better. I have to admit that this year seems more challenging than last year in several ways, but as Mr. Hyater has said, having the students here in school and the majority of our students with us has made it all worth it, because that's why we're here. And our students are excited, our staff members are excited, we're all excited to have the majority of our students back in school. And we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that our students and staff remain safe, and of course that they continue to learn and grow. You know, one of the things we didn't talk about so much today that we'll probably continue to talk about is we have students who have some learning loss over the past several months that we're addressing, and our staff members, our teachers, our administrators are working on that right away, making sure that we identify areas where our students are struggling, and we're addressing those immediately. So that's important. And we also have students who have some social emotional challenges because they've been isolated or working from home for a period of time, and now they're back together with their peers, so that creates some challenges when they all come back together again. And what we've been talking to our administrators about is, you know, some of our students, they're used to being at home where they can pretty much do what they want to do on their own schedule. And now they're back in school following a schedule, so there's some challenges involved in that as well. But we're very excited. Mr. Hyater, anything you want to add?
Yes, sir. I'd also like to add that we are truly excited that our students and our staff are back, and we want the collaborative input from our parents, but we'd also ask that for a little understanding and grace as we go forward. Each day, we'll work through any concerns or challenges there may be, and we will extend the same.
You know, I think one of the things I've said in other meetings that I've been impressed with your leadership, with the school board, and obviously the teachers and the principals that we have in Chesapeake, and that you've seemed to have planned everything to be problem-solving oriented. And in a situation or in a climate where the circumstances change daily or weekly or monthly, whatever, you can't have set procedures that you do no matter what. And the downside of that is when you make a change or you have to go in a different direction than you said the day before, people get confused and sometimes get critical. But as you just said, I think it's important that we ask all of our citizens and our parents, teachers, and to be flexible, to understand that we are in challenging times. We're all doing the best we can. And you know, Chesapeake still is the city that people think of when you want to come and raise a family, and a large part of that is because of the schools. And so we're really proud of what you do. We're thankful for what you do for our city, for our kids, for our parents. Education is important. We haven't even talked about other aspects. I know that you are particularly interested in expanding curricular so that kids can do more vocational type of learning as well as the academic. And so it's exciting time for us, exciting time for our school system, exciting time for our city. Are there any other concluding comments that either of you would like to make at this time that we didn't cover?
No, sir. I thank you for the time, and I'm sure that we'll have other topics that we'll discuss in the near future. You just hit on one, career and technical education, but we'll save that for another day. But we appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. And keep those buses going. You've had to do like lines and so forth, because I know B.M. Williams, for example, they had a line all the way down to Lowe's the first day, so I don't know how they're solving that problem.
We're fortunate that at least we're not on a main thoroughfare.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you can get back there. So, but everybody's doing what they can to try to alleviate these problems, and we certainly do appreciate it. You know, I really do appreciate you using this format to help get the word out, and I look forward to meeting with you again. Thank you all for listening.